The envelope was already sealed when Elon realized there was nowhere to send it. It sat on the small wooden table in front of him, plain, pale, and painfully ordinary. No company logo, no printed return address, no assistant waiting outside the door, no cameras. Just one envelope, one lamp, one tired man, and a name he had not yet been given. Elon had written letters before. Elon had written emails that moved money, messages that changed factories, notes that sent engineers back into impossible work. Elon had written plans for cars, rockets, tunnels, satellites, and cities that did not exist yet. But this was different. This letter was not for investors. It was not for a board. It was not for the public or for critics or for the strangers who decided each morning whether Elon was a genius or a villain. This letter was for a woman he had not met or failed to recognize. It was for the future wife he sometimes imagined in the quiet hours, when the machines had stopped screaming and the world, for once, did not need an answer from him. And because he did not know where she lived, he could not send it. That was the strange thing. Elon could track a rocket across the sky. Elon could tell a team where a part had failed. Elon could study maps, markets, engines, battery cells, orbital paths, and human behavior with frightening intensity. But he could not locate the one person who might one day sit across from him and understand the silence between his sentences. He stared at the empty front of the envelope for a long time. There was no address. There was only longing. The room around him was late-night quiet. Somewhere far away, a city continued without him. A hallway light leaked under the door. His phone lay face down beside the envelope, as if even the phone had grown tired of asking him to be someone. On the table were scattered papers with no readable marks, a cold cup of coffee, and a pen stained with ink. Elon did not look powerful in that moment. Elon looked old. Not old in years exactly, but old in the way a man looks when he has outrun too many versions of himself. There are some forms of loneliness money cannot soften. There are some rooms even success cannot fill. And that night, the richest thing Elon owned was not a company, a rocket, or a number on a screen. It was a letter to someone who was not there. He had begun it without planning to. The first sentence had come suddenly, like something rising from a place he usually kept locked. My future wife, I do not know your address. After writing that line, he had stopped. For a few minutes, Elon simply sat there, staring at it. A man who had spent his life trying to make impossible things real had written the most helpless sentence of his life. And then he kept going. Before we go further, you have to understand what Elon was really carrying that night. It was not only loneliness. It was not only age. It was not only the ache of wanting to be known after decades of being watched. It was the weight of a life lived so loudly that almost no one had heard the softer parts. The public had seen rockets rise. The public had seen factory floors. The public had seen arguments, interviews, headlines, deals, failures, triumphs, strange jokes, brutal deadlines, and storms of opinion. But the public had not seen this. The public had not seen Elon reading a letter to a woman with no address. He picked it up again. The paper trembled slightly, though he would have hated anyone noticing that. Then, in a low voice, he began to read what he had written. My future wife, I do not know your address. Elon has built things that required coordinates, maps,
permits, engines, signatures, and exact timing.
But Elon does not know where to send the simplest confession of his life. Elon does not know whether you are in a quiet house with a porch light on, or in a city apartment where the window catches the last gold of evening. Elon does not know whether you have already loved deeply, lost painfully, forgiven someone who never deserved it, or waited for a man who never came back the same. But Elon is writing anyway. He stopped after that line. The sound of his own name in the letter felt strange. It was as if he were trying to separate the man from the myth. Elon, the name millions used every day. Elon, the headline. Elon, the argument. Elon, the boy. Elon, the father. Elon, the son. Elon, the man who could stand in front of the world and still feel like he was standing outside a window, watching a family scene he did not know how to enter. He read the line again more softly. But Elon is writing anyway. And there it was, the central wound. Not the loneliness of having no one to write to, but the fear that even if he found her, he might not know how to arrive whole. The letter had begun in the present, but it quickly walked backward. That was how memory worked on Elon. 1 minute he was in a quiet hotel room, older, heavier, surrounded by the leftovers of another public day. The next minute he was a boy in South Africa, carrying books like a shield, trying to disappear inside ideas because the real world had sharp edges. Elon remembered the silence of rooms that did not feel safe. Elon remembered being too intense for other children, too inward, too strange, too hard to place. Elon remembered how books had opened doors nobody else could lock. Science fiction, physics, computers, strange futures, distant planets. There were years when imagination did not feel like a hobby. It felt like shelter. And this is the part of the story most people miss. Ambition does not always begin as confidence. Sometimes it begins as escape. Elon looked down at the letter and kept reading. Elon should tell you something before you ever decide to love him. Elon is not easy. Elon knows that. Elon has spent too many years moving as if stillness were dangerous. Elon has answered fear with work. Elon has answered grief with work. Elon has answered rejection, humiliation, failure, and confusion with more work. Elon learned early that if the room hurt too much, he could build another room in his mind. That helped Elon survive. But it did not always help Elon love. The sentence landed hard in the room. There were truths a man could say publicly because they were polished. There were truths a man could only say to paper because paper did not interrupt, did not defend itself, did not leave, and did not ask for a better version of him before sunrise. He thought about his mother, May, and the way mothers sometimes see the child inside the grown man, even when the world refuses to. He thought about leaving home, chasing North America, Zip2, PayPal, risk, pressure, and the education of being young and close to losing everything. Elon had been running for a very long time. He had run from pain into books. Elon had run from books into code. Elon had run from code into companies. Elon had run from companies into rockets and factories, until rest began to feel like betrayal. The letter continued. Elon will not pretend he became this way by accident. Elon has been praised for intensity, but intensity is not always peace. Elon has been called visionary, but sometimes vision is just a wound looking for a horizon. Elon has been called impossible, brilliant, cold, funny, cruel, generous,
reckless, necessary, too much, never enough. You may hear all of those things before you hear his voice in a quiet room. If you find Elon one day, please do not confuse the noise around him for the whole man. What came next was not about business. It was about being known by the world and still feeling unknown where it mattered. Elon has stood after a launch when people were cheering.
Elon has stood after a factory milestone when everyone said the impossible had been done. Elon has stood beside machines that could lift fire into the sky. And still, Elon has sometimes gone back to a room alone and felt the old boy inside him asking one question. Did anyone see me? Or did they only see what I built? The lamp hummed. That question did not accuse anyone. It did not excuse him either. It simply told the truth. There were people in his life who had needed more from him than a future. Children who needed presence. Partners who needed tenderness that did not arrive like a calendar invitation. Family members who needed him to stop solving and simply listen. Elon knew this. He had seen marriages strain under the weight of motion. He had seen love become logistics. He had known the grief of losing his first child and the strange cruelty of being expected to continue while something inside had stopped. And what did he do with pain? He worked. He worked until the pain had no room to speak, and then wondered years later why the silence felt so crowded. He lifted the letter again. My future wife, if you are reading this someday, know this. Elon does not need you to admire the rockets. Elon does not need you to praise the cars. Elon does not need you to defend him at dinner tables where people have already decided who he is. Elon needs something much harder and much simpler. Elon needs someone who can sit with him when there is nothing to announce. He paused there because that line embarrassed him most. There is a kind of love that men like Elon often understand too late. Not dramatic love, not public love. The older kind, the kitchen table kind, the quiet hallway kind, the hand on the shoulder after a bad day kind, the kind that does not ask a wounded man to become small, but also does not let him hide behind greatness. But the letter was not a fantasy. A future wife would not be a cure. A woman is not medicine for a man who has refused to rest. Love does not repair a life unless the person holding it is willing to be repaired. So the letter turned again, and this time it became almost a confession. Elon may disappoint you. Elon may answer too quickly. Elon may go quiet when he should speak. Elon may make the future sound urgent when what you need is the present. Elon may seem far away even when he is sitting beside you. Elon may believe he is protecting you by carrying everything alone when really he is building another wall. If that day comes, remind Elon that walls are not shelter when they keep out the person trying to come home. He read that sentence twice. Walls are not shelter when they keep out the person trying to come home. For a man who had spent his life building, it was a terrible thing to admit. Not everything built is a bridge. Some things are barriers. Some things protect a child and imprison the adult. And somewhere in that hotel room, under the hum of the light and the exhausted quiet of the city, Elon seemed to understand why the envelope had no address. Maybe the address was not missing because he had not found her. Maybe the address was missing because he had not yet become reachable. The final page of the letter was shorter. Maybe he had run out of courage. Maybe he had said too much. Maybe, after decades of speaking in plans and timelines, the plain language of love felt more dangerous than a rocket test. He turned the page and continued. My future wife, Elon does not know if you will be young or old when this letter reaches you. Elon does not know if you will laugh at how serious this sounds. Elon does not know if you will find him too late, after too many mistakes, after too many headlines, after too many people have tried to explain him before he has had the chance to explain himself. But Elon hopes you will know this. Under the noise, there is still a man who wants to come home. Under the ambition, there is still a boy who once wanted a safe room. Under the engines, the meetings, the anger, the jokes, the storms, the impossible schedules, and the strange loneliness of being needed by strangers, there is still someone who wants to be loved without performing. His voice broke slightly on the last word. Performing. Public life is performance even when a man insists he is being authentic. Every interview becomes a test. Every sentence becomes a weapon for someone else. Every mistake becomes permanent. Every success becomes insufficient by the next morning. But the letter was not staged. The letter had no audience. That was why it mattered. Elon folded the page carefully, as if the future woman might feel the crease someday. He slid it into the envelope. He pressed the flap down. Then he sat there with the sealed letter in his hands and did nothing. No address, no destination, no timeline. For once, Elon had made something that could not be launched, and perhaps that was the lesson. Not everything important travels fast. Not every message needs a receiver before it becomes true. Sometimes a man writes to the future because the present has finally become too quiet to avoid. Years from now, people may still argue over Elon Musk. They will argue over his companies, his choices, his words, his temper, his influence, and his contradictions. They will speak of Mars, Tesla, SpaceX, X, tunnels, satellites, factories, artificial intelligence, and a life lived at impossible speed. But maybe one of the truest images of him is not a rocket rising. Maybe it is not a stage, a factory, a launch pad, or a boardroom. Maybe it is an older Elon sitting alone after midnight, holding a letter addressed to no one, finally admitting that the hardest thing to build was not a machine. It was a home inside himself. Because Elon could build machines that touched the sky, but the hardest distance was the one between his guarded heart and the person who might one day knock softly enough to be let in. That is the line the letter never said directly, but it was inside every page. Elon could build machines that touched the sky, but the hardest distance was the one between his guarded heart and the person who might one day knock softly enough to be let in. He placed the envelope in a drawer, not hidden exactly, saved. There is a difference. Hidden things are buried because they are shameful. Saved things are kept because some part of us still believes they may be needed. Then he turned off the lamp. Outside, the city kept moving. Somewhere, someone was waking up. Somewhere, a woman he did not know was making coffee, folding laundry, closing a book, praying quietly, or looking out a window without knowing that a letter existed for her. And maybe she would never read it. Maybe no one would. But in writing it, Elon had done something the world almost never asked him to do.
He had stopped performing certainty. He had stopped announcing the future.
He had stopped trying to win the argument. For a few pages, he had let the wounded part speak. That does not erase the mistakes. It does not fix the absences. It does not turn a difficult man into a simple one. Elon Musk remains complicated, brilliant, flawed, restless, and hard to hold in one sentence. But perhaps that is why stories like this matter. They remind us that public men are still private sons. They remind us that builders are sometimes broken. They remind us that a person can be surrounded by applause and still be waiting for a voice gentle enough to say, "Come home." And if that future wife ever finds the letter, maybe she will not read it as a confession from a famous man. Maybe she will read it as something quieter. A tired human being asking, at last, to be known. Subscribe to learn about Elon's future love stories.